Hi, so today I was reading one of many twin multiples blogs that I follow, just out of curiosity, sometimes for research, curious background information on some people who are raising twins, getting ideas for blog posts, things like that. And today I came across one where the writer, who's a mother of twin boys, was talking about genetic testing. Now, her sons are fraternal boy twins, and she's always just amazed and curious by how at times in their lives they don't look alike, and at times they do look a lot alike. And it just gets her brain sort of thinking about the genetics behind why they look so much alike and why they don't look so much alike, and how they might have a feature that's the same, or they might have a mirroring feature, like a freckle on one cheek on this twin, whereas it's the same freckle on the other twin over here. Things like that. So she wrote a blog about whether she might get her boys genetically tested, one of those sort of like home system ones, to see sort of how much their genetic markers line up and how much they are really similar, since they're considered fraternal and not identical. And then she talked about how in the midst of doing that, she would also send in their other siblings test, so that she could sort of see how similar genetically all of her children were, since her two boys, her two twins, are fraternal twins, which means that really they're birthed at the same time, but they are actually two separate eggs from the start, so they really are genetically different human beings. So they actually are similar. Other than being born at the same time, they should be equally as similar to each other as they are to their siblings. So she's kind of curious to see how close the sibling, who's not a twin's genetic markers line up with the twin ones. And it'd be interesting to sort of, hopefully she'll do a follow-up to let us know what she finds in terms of how similar her twins are genetically, as opposed or as close to as well the non-twin sibling. And one of the questions it got me thinking about was, would I want to get genetic testing? And I know that in a previous blog, Becca and I talked a little bit about fraternal versus identical twins, and that we're fraternal twins, and that some people think we're identical because of the fact that we look so much alike, and we sound a lot alike. And sometimes I question it a little bit, because back in the old days when we were born, they didn't even know my mom was having twins. That's how long ago it was. There was a lot of missing science to the skill of figuring out, sort of through visual assessment, whether twins were identical or fraternal. Like, they know today that actually there can be times where identical twins will have separate sacs, and I think at the time there really wasn't a sense of that. If there were two sacs that came out after the birth, then the mother had fraternal twins, and that is not necessarily the case anymore. So in the end, we know now that that's not, and I think that's pretty much what they went with us, was that there were two egg sacs, so there must have been two original eggs. Long story short, I won't go into the science of that. Maybe at some other point I will. But Becca and I have talked about it a bunch of times, whether we'd want to know. And I think as twins, we're curious but hesitant, because in some ways I personally like knowing that we're twins, but I don't really know if I want to know for sure if we're fraternal or identical. I think it's fun to kind of think we might be identical. I think deep down we both sort of know we're probably fraternal, because there's quite a few differences. And we are pretty distinct people, although who knows if that's more environmental to some extent, or so forth. But we certainly are very different personalities. And so it's left us as twins to not get genetic testing. I think that we're just content to know that we're twins, and that we could be identical, and it's kind of fun to think that, and that we're most likely fraternal, and kind of leave it at that. Does that mean that forever we won't ever find out? I don't know. Maybe when I'm a little old lady, maybe before my time here on Earth ends, I'll convince her to get tested if I'm really curious at that point. But I don't know if I'll ever want to know. And I know she doesn't want to. She's just not really that curious and doesn't really want to know. I think she's in the same boat as me, where she just feels like it's kind of fun to think maybe, but to not really know. So it's interesting, and I think that the idea that this one mom is curious about the similarity of the DNA of the non-twin is really kind of interesting. She kind of compared it to trying to sort of make connections between the three siblings, since twins are sort of always lopped together as so close in a pair, whereas the third child, younger or older, tends to be left feeling a little bit out of that connection. And she was thinking maybe this would be a neat way to connect that third child, make them feel more like they're part of that twinship, if they have some of the same genetic markers. So just an interesting little tidbit about twins. If you're parents of twins, it's always something that you'll probably consider. And since, you know, there's lots of science behind knowing if twins are identical or fraternal, but it's not always 100%. And I do like the idea of kind of including that other sibling. So tell me too, what do you think? How do you consider genetic testing in your future with your kids, if you're a twin or you have twins? Let us know. We'd love to hear what your opinion is on this sort of option. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Mama, I'm trying